Thank you very much. Welcome back for the afternoon program. As Ryan said, I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of the Canadian and wireworm research being done, or the Canadian and PEI wireworm research being done, and really just to kind of give you the background of what's been happening these last couple of years. Okay, so there you go. Background information. I'm going to give you an overview on the Hort Cluster project work. We've heard that referenced a number of times this morning, and just to make sure you know what is happening there if you're not familiar with it, as well as just to give you a brief overview of the additional wireworm work that's been done in the region. Okay, so just to start, this, as you know, this day it was put together by the PEI Wireworm Research Working Group, and how this all started was with this guy back in 2011. This is Minister McIsaac. And back in May of 2011, he brought it to the floor of the legislature that he wanted to represent the growers in his district and the problems that they were facing with wireworm, and that it looked like it was, had the potential to wipe them out, and he was quite concerned and he wanted this to be addressed. And Minister Webster responded in June, said that we needed to charge the Department of Agriculture to coordinate a meeting of minds of all interested parties and find a way to tackle this problem. So in July of 2011, we had a large meeting at the research station in Charlottetown. There was a number of bodies in that room, and from that body, a smaller group was formed out of it, which is our Wireworm Research Working Group, and there was representatives on that from the Department of Agriculture, the PEI Potato Board, Cavendish Farms, the PEI Agri Alliance, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, the Hort Association, and most recently we've added a member from Health Canada, PMRA. So this is where this all started, and we wanted to tackle this and come up with not only a short-term but a long-term strategy to really tackle this beast. So in August, as we started these meetings, it was brought to our attention that there had been a horticulture cluster project that was happening, and the researchers in Canada had tried to apply to this program but were unsuccessful because the nature of the program wouldn't let those funds come back to the researchers at Ag Canada, and that's where all our scientists in this area are. And so the Department of Agriculture and the Agri Alliance started to facilitate some conversations to have the private industry and Ag Canada work together to try and find a way to access those funds. In that industry would raise dollars that would support the research that the feds would do, the researchers in Ag Canada, and that would help leverage some dollars to allow other work to be done outside of Ag Canada. Now, it had a really short turnaround time because we needed to get this done fast. So our researchers and industry worked tirelessly and managed to get the proposal in for September 2011. And the project was called the Wireworms and Potatoes and Root Crops. It was submitted by the Canadian Potato Council Research Working Group to the Hort Association, the Canadian Horticulture, and they were the ones who administer the project. It's very convoluted. Anyways, that all being said, we were excited because we were trying to move forward with this. Now, it was going to be an 18-month project, and of course this is quite a beast, and we knew that wasn't going to be enough time, but it was a place to start and hopefully long-term launch our strategy for GF2 as a way of kind of testing the waters with some of these projects, see what was successful, and hopefully build on them into the future with what would become GF2. And it was a national strategy. It had to have national scope, and because of that, it had national buy-in. And as you can see, these are all the contributors to that first cluster. And we have representation all across Canada. The potato boards from across Canada, vegetable associations, we have industry represented there, Engage and Syngenta, everybody contributed. And in that short amount of time, between the time this group first started having these discussions in August and in September, we had commitment from all of these contributors that raised $167,500 for research. And what that did was that was able to leverage over $500,000 in research funds for wireworm research. And this was an incredible joint effort. This was everybody working together to make sure that this moved forward. Of course, there's always bumps in the road. waiting for agreements to be signed and things like that, but we started the work with the hope that it would come through. Now, integral to this part have been the researchers. They were the ones who designed all of the studies. This is Dr. Bob Vernon, Dr. Christine Nerona, and Todd Kabalak. And they designed 8 activities that were part of this cohort cluster. And really the objective of it was, as it says, to develop integrated strategies, including cultural, chemical, biological controls, to come up with some sustainable management tools for wireworms. Now, just to give you a kind of a summary, I'm not going to go into great detail because really you guys want to hear from the researchers on their results. But essentially, these were the 8 activities and where they took place. We had the efficacy trials, we had work done with brown mustard and buckwheat, we had various grain seed treated trials, both in the fall and in the spring with lethal mixes as well as with already registered products. We looked at plowing, we did the click beetle study as well as the national wireworm study. As is mentioned too, Todd Kabalak's work with metarhizium as a biopesticide and finding ways to get better trapping, better risk assessment through trapping. That was not done in PEI at this point as it was under development, but it is believed that it will be expanded to this area. Okay, so all this time, just to give you an understanding, we're hard at it, the researchers are hard at it getting this done, but at the same time, we know that GF2 is coming, right? And they have to get their proposals in order to make this all happen. So less than a year after we've got these projects in and on the ground, they now have to get ready for the next set. And they're not even completed the first set of research. So while they're in the mean of, harvesting our data and starting to analyze it, there's a call by the Canadian Potato Council, who is putting forward the proposals to the Horde Association for the research for the next cluster for letters of intent. So essentially saying, if you're interested in doing research in an area, put in a letter to us to tell us what it is you want to research, and if it meets our merits, then we'll ask you to do a proposal. This is how quick the turnaround time is on this. So that was in November. By December, a formal request came back, said, we need this wireworm project to go ahead. Can you please put together a formal proposal? We also need to start having commitments from industry as far as dollars to know where we're going to stand. So it was a very busy Christmas season for those researchers as they had to do a pile of work trying to get their proposals in as well as tidying up the last cluster. So in January, these proposals had to be submitted to the CPC because they had to submit them by January 1st to CHC in order for submission. Now the exciting news after all this hard and tireless work is that we did receive approval for GF2 to continue on with the wireworm work. Now, with the GF2, it's supposed to run between 2013 to 2018, so that gives us 5 years of guaranteed research dollars to start working on this problem. Of course, again, there's bumps in the road and waiting for agreements to be signed. So unfortunately, we lost a fair number of projects this past year because those weren't ready and able to fund some of the work. But the work will continue and expand over the next 4 years. And again, it has that national scope. And because of our industry contributions, industry has raised $765,000 this time for 5 years worth of research, which means that we've leveraged nearly $3 million worth of money for wireworm research. So you can see in a 3-year period of time, we're looking at close to $3.5 million being invested in wireworm research because of the joint effort of our researchers at Ag Canada and industry. And that's also to say, too, that this is only a portion, really, of what our researchers are doing. This is one group of money. They do access other funds, and they're doing a pile of other work trying to address this issue. So in GF2, the projects that we're looking at being done, really a lot of them are continuation, as was planned, of the projects that were done under Growing Forward. So continued efficacy trials, which will be done in PEI and BC. The seed treatment strategies that we'll hear more about this afternoon. brown mustard strategies for wireworm control, the biologicals that Tad Kavalak is working on, and I think there's great potential as we continue down the road with that, as far as and we've heard briefly about it, but it's a very interesting strategy as well. In-field monitoring with better risk assessment tools, and then continuing the click beetle surveys. So these are all things that will continue to be built upon in the next 4 years, and we hope to see good results out of it. Now, aside from that, we also looked just in November kind of at the work that has been done regionally or locally as far as wireworms. This is hard to see because I pulled it off my my spreadsheet. Okay, so essentially some of the projects there, what we listed them as ones that had either been discontinued, ones that were currently on the go, ones that needed to be repeated but with some changes to them, and then we also looked at ideas we wanted to propose for the future. I'm not going to necessarily discuss some of those at this point, but the ones that we looked at being done, Movento, there had been some discussion that Movento was having influence on wireworms, and that has been done and needs to be repeated with some modifications. We did the grower survey to assess where we're seeing wireworm across PEI. We discussed that this morning. Using Dazitol. That has just been completed in this last year, and we're waiting on more reports from that. And Dept has funded projects as well on farm with mustards and whatnot. The Horde Association has done some work, and we're going to hear about that more this afternoon, so I'm not going to elaborate on that. Looking at muster meals, looking at crop rotation studies. These are things that have been done in the past and are continue to be ongoing, and it need to continue and develop as we go. The Organic Center over in Truro did a bunch of work as well on wireworms as far as crop rotation and wireworm control, click beetle crop, push-pull strategies, and all of that has been discontinued and has good information available online regarding that. So that's just kind of in brief to kind of give you an idea of the amount of work that has been going on behind the scenes. Maybe you don't always hear about it. We do try to bring this up at meetings because we know how important it is to you. But there are people that are working tirelessly to try and find an answer for you. And we may not have all the answers yet, but I think we're on the right road to finding a strategy. So thank you very much.